Greetings, my fellow citizens, and welcome to another edition of My Parents' Basement. I'm your host, Anthony Trombetta, and you know, a big problem with being a nerd in the North is that when you're in your basement playing video games all the time, and it's dark throughout the winter, you have no idea what time it is. But the last time I poked my head out, all groundhog-like, I noticed it's a new year! Welcome to 2014! Now, I figure we should probably have a look back at 2013, so welcome to the Highlights episode. Well, looky here, it's a new year. We got ourselves a new panel for My Parents' Basement as we check out the year in review in 2013. So we have the master of all things celluloid, Terrence Tate. Say a little something nerdy about yourself.
Hey guys, well, you know, I spent a lot of time in my parents' basement when I was quite young, and yesterday watching movies. So I'm hoping to continue this trend and tell you guys what I've learned over this great, wonderful year of 2013. Back to you, Anthony.
Awesome. And of course, we have here Caitlin Beaulieu, who is a comic book connoisseur, but also, more importantly, one of the founders of the Yukon Comic Society. That's pretty exciting stuff. Because we have a con coming up, right?
Yeah, we have a con coming up in August. We have dates already confirmed, so
Woohoo!
there you go.
Awesome. Super exciting. Who's coming? Is anybody coming? Is like Doctor Who coming? Is Chewbacca coming?
Can't reveal it.
Oh, secrets. Secrets are good too. And again, we have the Wizard of Cable 9, also a brain filled with an encyclopedic nerdy lore, Dave Hamlin.
Great to be here. Back for another season. Loving it.
Awesome. 2013 year in review. Let's start with film. Terrence, over to you.
The best movie of 2013 was Man of Steel, period. Simply put, I know that this movie has received many mixed reviews, but let's look at the facts. The critics really had an issue with the violence. Violence has been a big part of Superman since the start. They can't seem to get over it. They keep saying, it's too much. But let's look at it. Action comic number 1, the introduction of Superman. The first time the world ever saw Superman. Superman is seen in this comic destroying cars, throwing them into mountains, ripping light posts out. From that point, Superman simply gets more and more violent, to the point that looking at the death of Superman is so violent, and everyone loved it. It was extreme. This is the way comics have gone, and the movie simply followed suit with the way comics are trending to this day. Now, let's talk about some of the so-called bad things that the critics have said as well. First of all, the humor. They always seem to talk and refer back to Richard Donner's Superman and how it was funny. Well, that time has come and gone. Look at Batman, for example. Batman has had many different kinds of variations of how it's been done, and the blueprint has just continuously changed throughout time. None of it has been bad. It just continuously changes and evolves with the way things are going to this day. I really think that this is the way that people want to see these movies to be portrayed. This is the way the comics are. This is the way it kind of should be. The action was great. The story was strong. The true origins of Superman was really there. We finally had a good solid look at Krypton, which nobody has ever tried to do before, and it's a great breath of fresh air to see Krypton on the big screen. It just was a great origin story, along with a great cast, especially Michael Shannon, who was phenomenal, great as General Zod. It was just awesome to see him. Special effects are great, cinematics are great. The movie was by far the best movie of the year.
That's my emotional expression to that review, and my feelings on Man of Steel. I think I've made my point here at my parents' basement a few times, but I couldn't stand the movie. I hated the movie. I thought Krypton was pretty Disney-esque. I thought it was just like a shoebox full of junk just to form into toys, and a bit of a mishmash. And honestly, the violence thing, I understand there has been violent comic books, but those are used to affect, like the death of Superman. That level of violence hadn't been done before. So to kind of just repeat the thing, and it was weird violence. I mean, it's like, hey, Superman, who usually saves everyone, you go tackle that machine in the, on the part of the world that no one's at. Meanwhile, we'll throw the army at this one in the major city. It just didn't jive. Like all the points you made about the cinematic stuff, I do kind of agree. Like the super speed punching and good stuff, that's fun. Right? I'd call it a superhero movie. I wouldn't call it a Superman movie.
Well, go ahead, Dave.
No, you go
I was
ahead.
just going to say, what do I have to say to that? I completely disagree with you, Anthony. I'm just going to say that. I thought the movie brought every element that what people are looking for now in a superhero movie.
What element? Well, okay, there you go. See, you're proving my point. In a superhero movie, not in a Superman movie. Like there was nothing Superman about this movie.
But
there's a point about Superman in that in the same year he celebrated his 75th anniversary. That's a legacy,
I
man.
think you sound like everyone else who's fixated on this Richard Donner, let's make a joke about
No,
Superman
I'm not
movie
saying
and
that at all.
stuck into the past of how they used to make movies versus what we're looking for now is the continuation of what comics are doing. The movie followed suit perfectly. Exactly what, if you read Superman now, you watch that movie,
it's garbage. It's absolute garbage.
Well, that is your opinion on it, but I'm thinking the movie is made for the time and was absolutely done exactly how it should have been. And
Well,
therefore it
okay,
should have been the
then
best
people
movie.
are stupid in this time. I'm going to say that.
Well, now I think we're debating something completely different. Anthony.
Look. There was no story there. There's no story there. There wasn't. Look at this whole.
There was the
look
only
at this whole,
story that mattered.
It was his
Zod.
origin.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you got the Zod
The
storyline.
two main stories of Superman ever is his origin and General Zod, the biggest evil character that Superman had, Lex Luthor and stuff. But if you read Superman, General Zod was the bad guy, and they brought him down. Absolutely.
Luther was always the bad guy. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. Like, look, there was no origin story. He had a reverse Pa Kent who was from the Bizarro world that wouldn't set up a superhero like Superman into what he is supposed to be. Superman is specific. The reason why he has a 75-year legacy is because Superman is the ideal superhero. He's the one that everyone aspires to. He is the Superman. Like he was the first one that kicked in this whole superhero craze. So he has to hold that some sort of ideal. He was so wishy-washy.
He got his ideals from his good old Clark Kent family.
There was no ideals. Don't save that busload of children. Don't save me even though I know you can. Don't do nothing, kid. I'm going to go get swallowed by this tornado now. No, zip it.
I have to agree a little bit with Anthony on this one. I did think Pa Kent was a little dark, but I still feel he instilled all those moral characteristics that
Absolutely.
Clark Kent and Superman embody. Like the idea of like having to keep yourself secret from the rest of society and learning the right from wrong. And I do feel, I thought this was really interesting when I actually read about why they chose to have Superman actually kill, because Superman's always known for never killing anybody. And the screenwriter said, that's always just been like an accepted rule. Like Superman doesn't kill. But in this universe, they need to set up, well, why does he not kill? Like, what are the consequences? Like, why doesn't he go the extra mile? And I found through him having to learn what the consequences are of causing a death like that will enforce this idea of, I'll never do that again. I'll never kill ever again.
And exactly. And I actually love the point that you said that the ideals are there. I mean, what they did is they brought it to a point where the greater good was an issue. And so instead of saving me, Dad, it was, you got to keep it secret because the greater good is at stake. And that's what that whole scene was about.
We'll have a counterpoint coming up in the comic book section.
All right.
All right, I think it is time now. We're probably going to move over to video games. That's over to you, Mr. Hamlin.
"2013 was a huge year for video games, with big releases like Grand Theft Auto 5 and Call of Duty Ghosts, but the game that beats out all the rest was The Last of Us. Released exclusively for the PlayStation 3 and developed by Naughty Dog, the company responsible for the Uncharted series, The Last of Us is undoubtedly their masterpiece. Set 20 years after a viral outbreak that turned most of the world's population to zombies, the game focuses on the remaining survivors living in a desolated America. You play the character of Joel, a jaded survivor that has been tasked with escorting a young girl, Ellie, across the country to a resistance group known as the Fireflies, because she just might hold the key to saving humanity. The game is full of action and horror, set against the backdrop of massive cities left in ruins. The graphics are stunning, to say the least. The zombies are also different than what we're used to. They're infected by a strain of cordyceps fungus that mutates their bodies and turns them into these blind, meandering monsters lurking around the dark. The game relies heavily on using stealth as your best defense. Throwing a bottle across the room to distract the zombies away from you can sometimes be the difference between living and dying. Like Uncharted, your characters have to solve puzzles to move to the next level, so it's not just a run and shoot dynamic. But the real heart and soul of the game rests in the relationship between Joel and Ellie, and how Joel slowly becomes a father figure to her. The writing for this game is amazing. I really milked this game for all it's worth, searching every room and area for hidden weapons and skill points, but it's mainly due to the fact that I never wanted it to end. This game will have you hooked from the first opening sequence that's probably the most intense and heart-wrenching that I've ever played. That's why it's my game for 2013.
You know, I think this segment might be a little less yelly than the last one. Because, Dave, I don't think you're going to see too many naysayers. My only issue with the game is that I don't have any time. That's my one issue with the game. It's so good. It's so involved. And now, like, I had a daughter in November, and so now it's a father and daughter in the apocalypse.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, I need to play this game. The gravitas of all this is...
It's really ringing home for you. You could see yourself in this
really
situation if
ringing
it
home.
were to happen in Whitehorse now.
Yeah. Well, I like that this game is so popular. It's doing so well because I feel like, especially the zombie genre, can get pretty overplayed out,
absolutely.
right?
I was just gonna say that. When I first saw that it was coming out and it was another zombie game, I was like, come on, like how many zombie games can you do? It's just like how many cop shows can you have on TV right now, right? It's just right. It's just never stopped. But then you play the game and you're like, right on, one more wicked zombie game. It's fantastic. It's well done, and I agree with you. Yeah, it was.
It is really good, and I like it because it sort of strays away from the generic kind of what we all know to be the zombie kind of storyline, like everything goes to hell, and then people are forced to live. You know, it's the whole Walking Dead scenario. But in this one, they focus way more on the human dynamic and the fact that they set it in the future. It's less about the outbreak. It's like, okay, this has already happened. It's been like this for 20 years. This is how we've been living in this world for 20 years. And everyone just is kind of going through the motions as opposed to kind of the same discussions you're always used to in these zombie films, like, oh, what are we gonna do? Or we're running out of food, or this or that or the other thing. And it becomes this whole like trek across the country, which is really different. And you don't really find a lot of that in a lot of video games. Like you get games like Dead Rising or Left 4 Dead.
Yeah, usually in
know?
the games like that had that same kind of scenario, like all those Resident Evil things where you had to escort someone, you're like, oh, great.
It's like the worst
Here
part of
we
the game.
go.
Yeah.
Oh, it just drove you bonkers. You want to push them into the zombies just to get rid of them.
Make sure he survives. You're like, I don't want him to survive.
I mean, at least Ellie in this game, she could kind of hold her own.
Yeah.
And like she wasn't just this useless sort of AI following you around. Like she could kind of fight, do other stuff. And she just wasn't annoying. Like you actually cared for her. You wanted to look out for this person. And I don't know, just like the overall story was just so well made. Like Naughty Dog, the people who developed it, I felt they really took their time crafting the story and really thought out, you know, how can we make a zombie game that's different than the rest? Like, and I found they really did it. I don't know, because it is such a saturated market out there. How can you bring something new? And even like the mutation, the infection in itself is different. The whole idea of these fungal parasites mutating people into almost these blind, bumbling kind of people that if they don't hear anything, it's almost like bat radar, right?
Yeah.
So if they hear you, then they'll be attracted, but you can either, you know, distract them or use stealth really as what's going to get you through the game. And you have to use it. Like if you're just like, oh, I'm not going to use this stealth. And like, no, you're going to get you're going to be toast. You're not going to make it very far at all.
Well, if anything out of 2013, I mean, the exciting thing about everybody loves the game, everybody agrees on the game, and hopefully, you know, this will set a standard, right? So now people have to, like, if we make a game that's lesser than Last of Us, why are we even trying, you know, kind of thing.
Exactly.
So it's a better experience. Everybody wins in this kind of scenario.
Yeah, that's right. I find that it's great because it brought the zombie game platform to the next kind of level where I think that someone needs to come, and you know me, I'm a huge fan of Halo. I think someone needs to come to a next platform for the first player shooter now, right? How many times has Call of Duty been done? How many times has Halo been done? And I love all those games and I play them a lot.
Too.
But this did the next platform for the zombie, and I think you're right, setting a trend. So now, same thing. If you're going to come up with a new first player game, it's got to be something that's holy, I have to play it. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to have to be something different where it's like so good. And that's what this game did for the zombie game, and I agree, yeah.
Well, and especially because it's the PlayStation exclusive title, it's kind of why I've stayed with PlayStation, because I love Naughty Dog. Their Uncharted series is my other favorite series, and they took a lot of similar things but wrapped in this kind of horror survival story. And it really leaves on a good cliffhanger that opens it up for a sequel. So
Yeah, well, it was a perfect watermark, and it gets us, like, sets a nice course for 2014 and staying indoors and playing video games. But now we got to turn the TVs off, boys. I'm sorry, but it's time to get into comic books with Caitlin.
All right.
So the best comic that I read for 2013 was by the comic artist Mike Holmes. Draws himself and his cat in the style of various artists. His ability to capture personality is phenomenal. Mikeness captures not only the styles of the artists, but the style of the comics that they were drawing for, while still showcasing his own quirkiness.
Alrighty, let's get into comics. So, why this one? Why would you pick this one for? I mean, I saw the picture. I remember because it got shared all over the place online. I see it. It was pretty amazing. But why pick that for the best of 2013 comic books?
Mike Holmes has been one of my favorite comic illustrators for a long time. He's from my hometown, Halifax, Nova Scotia. So there's that partial representation. But like, one of the things I love about his ability is the way he captures people. He can tell an entire story without having to use a single word because of his ability to capture people and their emotions. And that book brought so much just like joy from like, oh, I know this artist, I know exactly who this is, without having to read who it was. And just his quirky humor coming through in all the illustrations, and not a word, you know, barely a word throughout the entire book. And it was such a joy to go through. And I think that's a real skill, because anybody can grab your interest with like all kinds of words and bringing you in with stories. You would hope so, spending that much time writing something. But someone who can actually capture your interest in something and say very little, but still say so much is, I think, a skill worth, you know, bringing up and mentioning.
Right, but do you think, like, in borrowing other people's styles, is there an issue with that at all? I mean,
no, because I think because
like how to take it like beyond like an originality kind of thing. Like, does he really make his stamp on this thing?
Yeah, for sure. He has a very like trademark sense of humor.
Yeah.
That if you've been following his work, you can kind of see it sort of through everything. And I think too, like, as anybody who draws comics or is interested in getting involved in drawing comics, everybody has their comic artists that they were like, this is the person I aspired to be. That, like, you know, whether it's like Jack Kirby or, you know, some sort of newspaper cartoonist, like, these are the people who like kids looked at and said, this is what I want to do. And so I think anybody who's reading this book can come to it from a place of like, oh yeah, I remember seeing my artist and trying to draw their style and relating to that experience. So I think he really captures what it is to be a comic illustrator through this book.
Hey, wait a second.
Well,
From your hometown, you're starting the Comic Con. Huh?
yeah.
Yeah, maybe? Okay, I won't reveal nothing.
Nope.
You said it's a secret? Okay, we'll keep it a secret. For me, 2013 was huge for comics. There was so much great stuff out there. Brian K. Vaughan's Saga, for one, was just ridiculous. But my favorite, this is going to be weird, and I know I get a lot of flack for it, but it's Injustice, Gods Amongst Us. blew my mind. And I know you're thinking, wow, you are a nerd because this is based on a Mortal Kombat video game of DC superheroes. But I tell you, the writer of it is awesome because one, it's pre-52. It's before DC rebooted all their stuff. It's all the legacy characters and their relationships. And the writer, Tom Taylor, he does it so well. The relationships, you just have to look at oh, I know what's going on here. There was one annual this year that came out in December, the annual of Injustice. Is the first time in a long time. You know when a comic book makes you yell out loud in surprise? It did that. It was like, finally, someone remembers that Harley Quinn used to be a psychiatrist. You know, it's important.
Yeah, I have a really hard time. I don't mean to be like negative about it, but I just video games aren't my thing. I don't like them, and it's really hard. And I don't want to say I don't want to read it because it's video games. I don't want to be that person, but I'm going to tell you right now that I'm probably not going to read it because it has anything to do with video games.
That's my life, man. This is like me talking to my wife, trying to convince her, like but I know it's a video game, but it was
she's really
so
good
well
at Mario
done.
Kart.
She's awesome at Mario Kart, which they don't have a comic book out of yet. Soon, though. We'll find out. Well, we've agreed, we've disagreed, and we've shared a few laughs and wrapped up pretty much our major highlights of 2013, but there was so much going on. I know there's probably a bit more to talk about. Terrence, do you have any highlights of the past year?
I don't know. Yeah, I would say the past year for me is really the movie industry has really come together, and for me it built a great foundation to what's to come. And I think 2013 has introduced movies and segments of things that we're to expect in the movie business, and all the cool stuff that we like as kids is going to come to us, and I'm just super pumped about it. That's
awesome.
About it, yeah.
Caitlin?
I think my exciting moment, my personal favorite, was definitely the birth of the Yukon Comic Culture Society. Registry wouldn't give us the Yukon Comic Society, and now I guess the pregnancy of the Yukon Comic Con. Yes, the birth of the Comic Society pregnancy. It's not happening yet.
Yeah.
So it's the pregnancy period. We're
Awesome.
expecting in August.
Oh, good. Dave?
Well, I'm a big TV guy, and TV got a little lost in the shuffle of the show, so I'm going to make mine pretty much, it's a bit of a tie, but I'd have to give the winning part to Game of Thrones and the crazy episode where the Red Wedding went down. I did not see that coming. I know a lot of people have read the books and been waiting years for this, but I came into a cold. I had no idea. I was not expecting it, and I was thrown through a loop, to say the least.
Yeah.
And I thought it was one of the most intense and just really like balls to the wall television. Like HBO is just knocking it out of the park. I don't know. I'm a huge fan of Game of Thrones.
You haven't read the books at all then?
I have not.
Whoa,
not at all.
Dave. You know nothing, Dave Hamlin. You know nothing. For me, for the past year, just being a new father and trying to fit in gaming at the same time has been my highlight. And if there's any new fathers out there, if I could give you some tips, like once you have them bundled up, you can football carry them, DS. You need the DS because you're going to be getting up a lot. So A Link to the Past there, the new Link game that came out, A Link Between Worlds. Beautiful stuff. That was definitely my favorite game that I played a lot of. So thanks once again to our new panelists in here, Caitlin and Terrence. Thanks for coming into my parents' basement. We'll hope to have you again. Maybe Batman versus Superman.
I look forward to it, Anthony.
Wow, that was a lot of back and forth, let me tell you. If you have any questions or comments, because I know at this point you're probably screaming at your TV or video screen, so send them our way via email or via Facebook. We do want to hear from you. And I just want to thank once again our wonderful host, Titan Gaming, here in the heart of downtown Whitehorse, for giving us such a wonderful basement to spend some time in. Please tune in to our next episode, and in the meantime, I'm going to stand here and grind my teeth and think about more arguments about Man of Steel.